All right. Um, This week's Parsha begins with the words, if you will walk in my chukim, and you will guard my mitzvahs. So Hashem promises us He's going to give us rain in its season and all the good blessings. That's how the Torah begins this week. So Rashi says, what's the Torah telling us by telling us to walk in His chukim? What does Hashem mean? So Rashi says that means Hashem is asking us to work hard in studying Torah. Why does it mean to work hard in studying Torah? The word the Torah uses is Bichukosay. Bichukosay means to keep my mitzvahs, my commandments. Actually, 3 different words for commandments. Bichukosay, my chukim, refers to a specific kind of commandment. In general, there are 2 kinds of commandments. Mitzvahs which we understand, and mitzvahs which are super rational, mitzvahs which are beyond our logic. But in that itself, there are 2 kinds. Like, for example, the mitzvah Shabbos. Shabbos is not a mitzvah that ourselves, we would figure out by ourselves. Once the Torah commands us to keep Shabbos, we can understand it. Hashem created the world in 6 days. He rests on the 7th day. Hashem tells us to keep Shabbos as well and to rest on the 7th day of the week. So that mitzvah is in the category of edus. It's a testimony. We're testifying. We're keeping Shabbos. We believe that Hashem rested on the 7th day. Understand? When we keep Shabbos, we're showing that we believe that Hashem rested on the 7th day. That's why we're resting on the 7th day too. That's the category called edus, which it's not something that our logic itself would tell us to do, but once Hashem told us to do it, we could explain it. And then there are mitzvahs which are logical, that don't need any explanation, like honor your father and mother. It's expression of gratitude to those who brought you into this world, and it's in sync with the Torah trying to create in us this theme of gratitude to others. Then there is a mitzvah which is completely above logic and reason, mitzvah of chukim, mitzvahs which are called chukim. The truth is that even the mitzvahs which are called chukim have some reasons for them. It's just that in general, those mitzvahs are beyond logic and reason. It's not like the other mitzvahs where the reason is really something which is fully understood by our minds. The truth is that even the mitzvahs which are called mishpatim, mitzvahs of honoring your father and mother, mitzvahs not to steal, not to kill, even those mitzvahs, their real essence is the will of Hashem. It's not that Hashem had a reason for them, and because of the reason He issued these commandments. It's the opposite. First, Hashem had a desire for these mitzvahs, and Hashem desired these mitzvahs should become into logic. It's not that the logic motivated Hashem's desire, because the essence of every mitzvah is the desire of Hashem. The truth is that the fact that some commandments are gone into logical reason, some mitzvahs haven't gone into logical reason, that itself is something which is super rational. We can't understand why Hashem chose some mitzvahs to go into. It makes sense to us that the red heifer is higher than logical reason, and not to kill, not to steal is logical. But that itself, Hashem created our minds to think that way. That is itself is something that Hashem decided, something which is super rational. Anyway, so the Torah says, if you'll keep my chukim, then Hashem says, I will give you the rain. Now, Rashi could have said that the Torah is referring to the mitzvahs of chukim. That's what the simple translation of Bichukosay means. The mitzvah is called chukim. But Rashi doesn't say that. Rashi says you can't say that. Why not? Because there's another word in the pasuk, another phrase in the pasuk, guard my mitzvahs. So it doesn't say what kind of mitzvahs. It doesn't say what kind of mitzvahs. So that means it's talking about all kinds of mitzvahs. So if the word mitzvah tishmeir is referring to all kinds of mitzvahs, So then we're left to wonder, what's the first part of the pasuk talking about? What's that first part talking about? So Rashi says it's not talking about the mitzvah. It's not talking about mitzvahs. Rather, although it says Bichukosay also here refers to Torah study. Not just Torah study, but studying Torah in a way of amelim the Torah, to work hard in studying Torah. Why is it that the laws of the Torah, which are super rational, why are they called chukim? What does chukim have to do with laws which are super rational? So in Hebrew, the word choik, which we're saying refers to laws which are super rational, also is connected to the word chakak, which means engraved. So you would think that the mitzvahs that we understand that make sense to us, those are more part of us. Those are things which are more natural to us. But the mitzvahs which we don't understand, the mitzvahs which are beyond our logical reason, those mitzvahs you'd think are less part of us. They're the mitzvahs which go beyond what we can understand. You think those mitzvahs are not really part of us. We do them, Hashem said so. Mitzvahs which are like you understand and you appreciate and you feel good about, you think those are more part of you. So the word Bichukosay, which means to be engraved, actually you'd think would apply more to mitzvahs which make sense, mitzvahs which are logical. The Torah says no. The mitzvahs which are higher than logic, those are the ones which are called engraved inside of you. Why? Because let's go for a second to understand what difference is between something when it's written or on parchment, or when something is engraved in stone. Let's understand exactly the difference between them. When something is written on a piece of paper, ink is written on a piece of paper. So the ink and the paper are two different things. And although they connect to each other, they're still two different things. And although they're now become one, they can become separated again. The ink on the paper can become separated. And when they come separated, it's possible that nothing will be lost in the paper when they're separated, because the ink and the parchment are two different things. So you put ink on the parchment, then you wash off the ink, the parchment will remain whole. Why? Because the ink and the parchment are two different things to begin with. However, if you chisel into a piece of stone, let's say you chisel into stone, I love David Mayer, right?
Yeah.
Right. And then you say, I want to take off those words. I want to take off the words. You shouldn't. Let's say you decided to. So if you did that, the stone would be missing some of the stone. There's a part of the stone that now is not there anymore. Why? Because the words that you wrote were in the stone. They were part of the stone. So you want to take those letters off the stone, you're going to break part of the stone. So that's the difference when you write it and when you engrave it. When you engrave it, it becomes part of the thing itself. So then how come the laws which are super rational, why are they called part of us? The answer is what is a Jew? It says in the Sefer HaKuzri that there are 5 kinds of creatures of Hashem. There is inanimate, like stones and water. There's vegetation, like trees and plants. There are animals, there are humans, and there are Jews. Jews are a different category, where it says in the Talmud, Jews are called the heart of the world. So it's not just another kind of human, Americans and French and Jews. Rather, it's a whole different kind of creature. And the essence of a Jew is not intellectual. A Jew is not about being intellectual. What is the essence of a Jew? The essence of a Jew is his devotion to Hashem, is his Kabbalah soul to Hashem. So when it makes sense to him, it's logical to him, so it may feel very comfortable and very resonate, but it's not really touching his very core. At what point is it his very core? It's him himself. Actually, when it's beyond his logic, when it's higher than his mind. When it's higher than his mind, and he can't understand it. He's just doing because Hashem said so. That's part of himself. That's part of who he is. That's his neshama doing. His neshama is him. His mind isn't him. His neshama is him. What's more a Jew? The mind of the Jew or the neshama of the Jew? What do you think?
Yes.
The neshama is more yourself, right?
Yeah.
Neshama is more you. Your mind isn't you. Your mind is one thing you use, a tool that you use. But who are you? Who's your very core? Your very essence? Your very essence is your neshama. So therefore, in the mitzvah that you have to put away your logic and you have to do because Hashem said so, in that exercise, you are connecting to your deepest self. In that exercise, you're becoming one with your truest part of yourself. Your Kabbalah sale, your ability to accept Hashem as your king, that's you. That your devotion to Hashem is you. As the previous Rebbe said, a Kabbalah Selenik is a Yid is a Kabbalah Selenik. A Jew is someone who accepts upon himself the yoke of Hashem. Someone who accepts upon himself the yoke of Hashem, that's what a Jew is. So that explains why the mitzvahs which are super rational are called chukim. They're the ones which are called engraved. And the truth is, it's not only those mitzvahs, but as I said before, every mitzvah is the will of Hashem. And that's why when the Torah introduces these laws which are super rational, the Torah says, these are the laws of the Torah. So it's chukas haTorah. It doesn't say these are the laws of whatever subject the Torah was talking about in that parsha, the laws of the red heifer. The Torah says this is the law of the Torah, which means that every mitzvah we're supposed to do with the same devotion and do it because Hashem said so. And only when you do it in that way are you really putting your neshama into it. Are you really becoming one with it. Understand? But here, getting back to our subject over here, we're not talking about mitzvahs. Here Rashi says, Bichukosay is not referring to mitzvahs. Here Rashi says, Bichukosay means to study Torah. Whereas the Orach Chaim HaKadosh says, that here, when the Torah says to work in the study of Torah, to work hard in the study of Torah, here the Torah uses the word chayk. Chayk specifically is referring to working hard in the study of Torah. Why is it? Why is it when you work hard in the study of Torah, why is that considered chukosay? When you do something, let's say you enjoy learning. So how much do you enjoy learning? Let's say you enjoy learning for 2 hours, 3 hours. Or how deeply do you enjoy learning? How hard do you want to work with your mind to understand something? Let's say you want to push yourself, 10% more than you did last time, 20% more than you did last time. There's going to be a limit to how much you're enjoying it, and then you're going to be like, I can't anymore. You might start off with like a whole burning fire. I want to do this, and then you lose the energy after a while, right? Why? Because you and the learning aren't the same. It's not part of you. But when it's one thing with you, you never get tired of it. It's similar to what the Gemara says about dessert. The Gemara says, there's always room for dessert, always room for sweet things. If it's sweet, it's geschmack. You enjoy it, you have room for it. But you only still have so much room. And when it's part of you, it's one with you, then there's no limits. So when the Torah says Amel in the Torah, to work hard in the study of Torah, that it doesn't mean to do as much as you enjoy. It doesn't mean to do for many hours as much as you enjoy. It means to go beyond what you enjoy. Beyond, to exert yourself harder than you want to learn longer than you want to go beyond what's comfortable for you. Like the Gemara says that brought in Tanya, chapter 15, the Alter Rebbe says there are two kinds of people: those who serve Hashem, those who don't serve Hashem. Alter Rebbe says, who is someone who serves Hashem? The Alter Rebbe says someone who serves Hashem is someone who reviews his Gemara 101 times. 101 times. What if you learn it 100 times? You're not considered a servant of Hashem. Only if you do it 101 times, then you're a servant of Hashem. Why 100? Why one time makes a difference? So Alter Rebbe gives an example of a shuk shachamarim. In those days, in the time of the Gemara, there was a rent a donkey. You rented a donkey. You wanted to go 10 parsa, let's say 10 kilometers. So you would pay one zuz, $100. Wanted to go 11, you have to pay $200. Why? Because you're going beyond the limits of what the donkey can do. Since you're going beyond the limits of what the donkey can do, it costs twice as much. So in a similar way, the Alter Rebbe says that when we go beyond our limits and serving Hashem, that's when we become a servant of Hashem. When we do what we're used to, we're comfortable, that's not called a servant of Hashem. when we specifically when we break our limits, we go beyond our nature. When we're too tired to learn, we're not interested in learning, and we push ourselves anyways to learn. That's when we're becoming a servant of Hashem, and that's when we're connecting to Torah in a way that it becomes us. And the Torah that's a sign. The fact that I'm going beyond limitations, that's a sign that Torah is part of it. That's what Torah is one with it. And the Torah continues and says, "Bichukosay teilechu." You should walk in my chuk. What does that mean? In this effort of studying Torah beyond limits, there are different levels. There is studying Torah beyond limits of what you're used to last week, and there's studying Torah beyond the limits of what you're used to this week, and then next week, and then the week after. There is 101 times. Let's say you got used to 101 times. Now 101 times is easy for you. So now, what's considered serving Hashem? Doing 102 times. Like Deborah Ashab said, Deborah Ashab was leaving with the city of Lubavitch with his son, the previous Rebbe. And Deborah Ashab mentioned how Lubavitch was the home of Chabad for 102 years. And he mentioned the significance of the number of 102. And he says that although in the Gemara it says that 101 is the level of service of Hashem, but that has become the norm. And now Chassidus has added another layer, and therefore what's required is 102. That was the meaning of the 102 years that Lubavitch was the home of the Chabad movement. Anyways, so the instruction of Hashem means that you consistently have to work harder than you did before. And then what does the Torah say will happen as a result? As a result of this, the Torah says that Hashem will give all the brachas. But the key is that although we're talking about going beyond what's enjoyable, it doesn't mean that you don't enjoy it. It means if it's part of you, then you enjoy it, right? It's not that you're enjoying it because of the logic of it. Like there were these Greek philosophers who would study their Greek philosophy all day long, and they enjoyed it. They wouldn't eat, and they wouldn't drink, and they wouldn't sleep, and they go on and on. But it was because they loved the intellectual pursuit of it. Here we're talking about not that you're enjoying it because of the intellect in it, because it makes sense to you and it's enjoyable. Rather, we're talking about working hard in the study of Torah because this is the will of Hashem, because this is what Hashem wants us to do. Just like when Hashem gave us the Torah, He told that we said to Hashem, we will do before we understand. It was built on us being devoted to Hashem beyond logical reason. So too, our approach as Torah study cannot be that we're just studying Torah as much as we like to. If we're doing that, then it's not, the Torah is not part of us. It's not the way to make Torah part of us. What's the way to make Torah part of you? It works both ways. One, it indicates the Torah is part of you when you go beyond yourself. That shows that it's one with you. The Gemara even says about certain tzaddikim that they had to control themselves in order not to think about Torah when they were in a place that they weren't allowed to think Torah, because they just couldn't stop thinking about Torah, because that was their whole being was Torah. So the fact that you think about Torah endlessly, even places that you shouldn't, and you have to control yourself, that itself shows that you're one with Torah. But also, to make Torah part of you, it also requires this devotion beyond logical reasons, beyond your normal, beyond your nature. The Alter says, to reach Pnimius, you have to have Mesiras Nefesh. Pnimius means to make something part of you. You have to have sacrifice for it. So it's specifically by us working in the study of Torah, beyond what we're used to, that we make the Torah part of who we are. The Torah becomes engraved within us. And that's the key to all the brachas in the Parshas, especially the bracha, the coming Mashiach. And when the Mashiach comes, it says the same thing. When Mashiach comes, it says that Talmidei Chachamim, the wise, Ein Lahem Menucha, they have no rest. Lo Yibel Mhaza, Lo Mhava. They won't rest in this world, they rest in the world to come. Why not? It says in the Torah, Yehuch Mechayil Chayil. They go from strength to strength. So last week, 101 was the normal. Now 102. Mashiach comes to be the same thing. We're continuously going higher and higher in our study of Torah and an exertion, the study of Torah. But this all is with Geshmak. It's enjoyable. What's enjoyable? It's enjoyable not because of the logic in it, but because a Jew feels that he and the Torah are one. The Hashem and the Torah and Jewish people, the Zohar says, are one. And so I wanted to share. It's very important. That's coming to Lag Baimer. And Lag Baimer is a day that teaches us to set aside some time, study Torah in a way that Torah Sim Naseh, it's Shabbos, don't answer the phone, don't do anything. you're totally submerged and scuba diving in this Torah, and you cut the cord with no snorkeling. It's completely in the water of Torah. And that brings all the brachas of Hashem and the brachas of the coming Mashiach, as it says in the Torah portion. Will lead us upright, and of Israel, the Karev Mamish, the Chaim.